Hi, you're watching the Daily News Simplified, which is your one stop solution for daily current affairs analysis. And today, that is 15th of November, the entire country is under the grip of World Cup fever. And let me tell you, Raus IAS is also not an exception to it. However, we also know that a serious aspirant, he will always prioritize his preparation over other things. Therefore, we have also come up with a bouquet of articles which we will cover today in the daily edition of Daily News Simplified. We'll start off our today's discussion with a prelim centric article on wholesale price index because currently the WPI it is witnessing a deflationary trend, which means the WPI is in the negative territory for continuous 7 months in a row. Whereas the second article in prelims related discussion, it is on the ASEAN's Defense Minister Meeting Plus initiative. Because India's Defense Minister, he will be attending the 10th annual meeting of ADMM Plus. While in the third article of prelim centric discussion, we will cover the for National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization or NOTTO. As this organization, it has highlighted that 4 out of 5 organ recipients in the country, they are men. While on the other hand, women, they form a major chunk of organ donors. Whereas in the main centric discussion today, we will start off with the PM-Kisan scheme because Prime Minister, he will release the 15th installment of rupees 2000 to farmers as per the PM-Kisan initiative. Whereas in the second mains related article, it is on money laundering. Because the Cyprus confidential report, which is reported by Indian Express in its explained section, it highlights how money laundering it takes place in tax haven countries like Cyprus. Whereas our last article of the day, it will be on batteries. As lithium ion as well as fuel cell batteries, they have become a foundation of our modern civilized societies. Hence, let us start our today's DNS with the first article of the day, which appeared on front page of the Hindu newspaper. Now, as you can see, this article highlights that the wholesale price index it has remained in the deflationary zone, which is in the negative inflation, and this has been so for the past 7 months. Now, inflation and its various indexes, such as the wholesale price index as well as consumer price index, it is important from prelims point of view. And it is also important from GS paper 3 perspective because the syllabus it highlights Indian economy and issues relating to growth and development. And in high inflation, it is inhibitive to our nation's growth. Now, why are we reading this particular news? It is because UPSC in the past, particularly in the year 2020 itself, it asked a question related to weightage of food on consumer price index as well as wholesale price index. Hence, on similar lines, we have curated this practice question on WPI. But before discussing this question, let us move and let us know more about what is this wholesale as well as consumer price index. Now, as you can see from this graph, the wholesale price index, it is published by the Office of Economic Advisor, which comes under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Whereas on the other hand, the consumer price index, it is published by the National Statistics Office, which comes under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now, the base year for WPI is the year of 2011 and 2012. Whereas on the other hand, for CPI, the base year was 2012. Now, in terms of coverage, WPI it covers 697 different items, which is more than the consumer price index, which covers almost 300 items. Now, in terms of weightage, when it comes to food, WPI it accounts for 24% of food items. Whereas on the other hand, the weightage of food is more in the case of CPI because it accounts for about 39% of the total index. Hence, you can see if there is an increase in price of food items, the impact it will be more pronounced on CPI when you compare it with the wholesale price index. While in terms of fuel are concerned, WPI it accounts for about 13.2% weightage for fuel items. Whereas on the other hand, consumer price index it only gives 8% weightage to fuel items. Hence, when the increase when there is an increase in prices of fuel, the amount of WPI it will grow more when you compare it with the consumer price index. Whereas the coverage of services are concerned, WPI currently it does not cover services, whereas CPI it covers services in its entirety. Now let us consider whether WPI considers indirect taxes or not, and hence we can see that WPI it does not cover indirect taxes, whereas on the other hand, consumer price index it covers the indirect taxes. Now whether RBI targets WPI or CPI. Now RBI in its current form it does not cover the WPI, whereas CPI is concerned, RBI targets the CPI and it wants to keep the CPI between 2 and 6% range. And it is statutorily mandated to the RBI as it should cover or it should limit the inflation in the country between these two percentage. Now, after we have known a bit about WPI and CPI, let us now solve the model question. Now, this model question, it asks us to consider following statements. The first statement, the number of items covered in the wholesale price index, it is higher than that in consumer price index. As we have seen, WPI covers about 697 articles, whereas CPI, it only covers 299 items. Hence, this statement is correct. Now, WPI, it is published by National Statistics Office under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now, as we have already understood, WPI, it is published by Office of Economic Advisor, which comes under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Hence, this second statement is incorrect. Whereas the third statement, it says that WPI, it captures changes in indirect taxes. Now, as we know, WPI, it does not capture indirect taxes as all. Hence, it does not capture the changes in indirect taxes, which makes this third statement incorrect. Now, this question, it asks us to give the correct answer as how many of the above statements are correct. From this above discussion, we can say that option A is the right answer. Whereas the PYQ of the year 2020 is concerned, the weightage of food in consumer price index is higher, which makes statement 1 correct. Whereas WPI, it does not capture services, which makes statement 2 correct. Whereas the third statement, it says RBI, it adopts WPI to target inflation, which is incorrect. Thus, option A is the right answer for this PYQ. Now, let us move to the second article of the day, which appeared in the in page 12 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, this article reports that country's Raksha Mantri, that is Defense Minister, he will attend the 10th meeting of ASEAN Defense Minister Meeting Plus initiative. Now, why are we reading about this particular meeting? Because GS paper to syllabus, it highlights bilateral, regional and global groupings which involve or affect India's interest. Now, this particular organization, it is important for India's regional security initiative. And also, UPSC in the past, it has asked questions related to free trade partners of ASEAN, and India is one of free trade partners of ASEAN. Hence, ASEAN and its related bodies, they are important from prelims perspective. And on similar lines, we have curated this practice question as well. But before solving this practice question, let us know more about what is this ADMM Plus initiative. Now, in the year of 2017, the ADMM, that is ASEAN Defense Minister Plus initiative, it started to meet annually. And this body, it is responsible for dialogue and cooperation between various ASEAN and its security partners. Now, this body, it's one of its objective, it includes fulfilling the VNTN action program. As this action program, it wants to secure the security of ASEAN region, and it also wants ASEAN to inculcate more outward looking strategies in terms of external affairs. And this ADMM plus, it plays an important role. Now, when it comes to membership of ADMM plus, it includes only the full-fledged dialogue partners of ASEAN, because these dialogue partners, they should be they should have significant defense attraction with ASEAN countries. And this dialogue partner, they should also aim to achieve enhanced regional security in and around ASEAN region. Now, what is the ADMM Plus's membership? It consists of 10 members who are members of ASEAN body, as well as 8 dialogue partners. Now, these dialogue partners, they include India, Japan, as well as China. Whereas in terms of Pacific and East Asian nations are concerned, it includes Australia, New Zealand, as well as Russia, United States, as well as South Korea. Now, after we have known more about ADMM Plus, let us now solve the model question. Consider the following statements with reference to ASEAN. The first statement, it says that VNTN action program, it is associated with ASEAN Defense Minister Meeting Plus mechanism. As we have already discussed, ADMM Plus, it wants to fulfill the VNTN action program. Hence, statement 1 is correct. Whereas the second statement, it says to be a member of ADMM Plus, the plus country should be a full-fledged dialogue partner of ASEAN, which is also a correct statement. Whereas the third statement, it says that Russia, it is not a participatory to the ADMM Plus mechanism. As we have highlighted, Russia is one of 8 dialogue partners of ASEAN, which makes third statement incorrect. Now, this question, it asks us to consider how many of the statements given above are incorrect. As only statement 3 is incorrect, option A is the right answer. Whereas the PYQ is concerned, option C is the right answer, because Australia, China, India, as well as Japan are free trade partners of ASEAN. Now, let us move to the third article of the day, which appeared on page 12 of the Indian Express newspaper. Now, in this article, the National Organ as well as Tissue Transplant Organization, or NOTTO, it has highlighted that 4 out of every 5 organ recipients in the country, they are men. Whereas on the other hand, women, they also make a significant chunk of organ donors. Hence, this study as well as this body, that is NOTTO, it is important from GS paper 1 perspective as well as GS paper 2 perspective, because this paper, it highlights various groups and associations who are responsible for donors and charities. Now, UPSC in the past, it has asked questions related to Food Safety and Standards Act as well as Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Hence, on similar lines, we have curated this practice question on National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization. But before solving this particular question, let us know more about this particular body. Now, the National Organ for Tissue and Transplant Organization, it functions under the Director General of Health Services, which is a part of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now, this particular body, it acts as an apex organization, which is responsible for procuring, allotting, as well as distributing organs in the country. Now, it has 2 divisions. The first is the National Human Organ and Tissue Removal Storage Network, and this division, it is responsible for coordinating as well as networking the procurement, allotment and distribution of organs in the country. And this division, it also prepares a registry which marks every organ donation that occurs in the country. Whereas the second division, it is known as National Biomaterial Center or National Tissue Bank. And this particular division, it is responsible for maintaining the supply and demand equilibrium of organs in the country. Further, this body also ensures the quality of organs that are transplanted in the country. And these two bodies, they function under the Transplantation of Human Organs Amendment Act of the year 2011. Hence, let us now solve the practice question. With reference to National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, consider the following statements. The first statement, it says that it is a national level organization set up under the Directorate General of Health Services, which we have already established is a correct statement. Now the second statement, it says that the NOTTO, it created organ transplantation affinity group in collaboration with the World Health Organization. Now this statement is correct because it is the US government and its Department of Medical and Health Services which has created this OTAG grouping. Hence, as per the correct demand of the question, only option A is correct. Whereas the PYQ is concerned, here also option A was the right answer. Now let us move to the mains related discussion of the day. And the first article in this regard, it appeared in page 10 of the Hindu newspaper. Now why are we discussing this PM-Kisan initiative? Because Prime Minister Modi, he has released 15th installment of the PM-Kisan funds, which amounts to rupees 2000 every installment. Now, after this installment, more than 8 crore of farmers in the country, they have received a total amount of rupees 18,000 crores. And this highlights the size of funds that farmers receive in the country. Now, what is this PM Kisan initiative? This initiative is a central sector scheme, which means that 100% of the funds it is given by the central government. Now this initiative, it provides rupees 6,000 annually to farmers, which is given to them in 3 installments of 5 of 2,000 each. And this installment and this fund, it is provided to a family. Now earlier, this scheme was the benefits of this scheme, it was only provided to farmers who had less than 2 hectares of land. However, in the year of 2019, this benefit it was extended to all farmers in the country. Now the responsibility of identifying the farmers, it is given to the state governments as well as the union territory administration. And to the beneficiaries, the amount it is transferred directly by the central government through direct benefit transfer initiative. Now, why do we need such a scheme in the first place? It is because farming in a country, it is not exactly a remunerative activity. Because currently in India, about 50% of its entire population, it is employed in agricultural related work. And this 50% of country's workforce, it supports 70% of nation's families. Further, India has witnessed stagnant farm income since the liberalization has occurred. And on an average, farmers' income it has only increased 3.4% annually, which you have realized is less than country's annual growth rate. Further, due to stagnant farm income, farmers in the country they are riddled with several debt, and an average farmer debt in the country it has spiraled to 47,000 rupees per farmer. And due to this high debt, farmers they are forced to commit suicide. As in the year of 2015 itself, more than 8,000 farmers as well as 4,500 agricultural workers, they committed death by suicide. Hence, to improve the conditions of farmer, the government of India, it felt essential. Hence, it brought forward this income transfer scheme of 6,000 rupees annually. Now, what are the benefits of such income transfers to farmers in the first place? The first benefit, that it transfers the income to farmers directly. Earlier and even today, farmers in the country, they receive different support from the government. For example, government provide input support to farmers because government, it wants to reduce the input cost for farmers. For example, government of India, it provides fertilizer subsidy to farmers, which makes fertilizers available to farmers at a cheaper cost. Further, government also wants to increase the output prices for farmers, and this government achieves through a policy of minimum support prices. Because increasing the minimum support prices of various crops, government ensures that farmers, they get more income for their agricultural output. However, this PM Kisan initiative, it is very different because first of all, it provides income to farmers directly without considering their input as well as output. Hence, you can see that this initiative, it creates less distortion in terms of inputs because it favors the market approach. Whereas the negative externalities which were associated with subsidies, especially fertilizer subsidy, it is also eliminated by this direct income transfer. Further, there was another market distortion which was happening because of increased MSP, because it led to increased prices which were paid by consumers as well as distributors in the country. Whereas when a fixed income, that is rupees 6,000, it is provided annually to farmers, it results into less market distortion. Hence, it is beneficial for the entire agricultural ecosystem. Further, as we have witnessed, farmers in the country, they rely more on informal credit to meet their daily consumption as well as capital demands. However, on the other hand, when farmers, they receive 6,000 rupees annually, it will reduce farmers' dependence on informal credit. Further, when this money, it is transferred to banks of farmers, it will also make farmers more aware of the formal financial network, which will further reduce their dependence on these informal credit mechanisms. Also, what we have seen that this income transfer, it is of greater efficiency when you compare it with other policy support measures. For example, fertilizer subsidy as well as MSP program, it benefits more to large farmers when you compare it with small and medium farmers. Because large farmers, they purchase more inputs as well as they have higher outputs, which eventually benefits them more. Whereas on the other hand, when income is transferred directly to farmers, it leads to greater efficiency. And this greater efficiency, it means that even a small farmer will spend this kind of money for benefits or for increasing their agricultural productivity. Now, further, this scheme, what it does is that it support youth in the country, because youth, when they have a fixed income of rupees 6,000 annually, it will encourage them to move to other remunerative activities. Further, this youth, they will also start off enterprises as well as move to. I'm sorry for the disturbance. As we were discussing, this scheme it supports youth in the country as it enables them to move out of agricultural and to other remunerative activities such as entrepreneurship. Further, this support scheme, that is direct benefit transfer, it suffers from no selection biases. As every category of farmers, they are eligible for benefits under this scheme. Further, it also creates no distinction between social, economic, as well as farming background of a farmer. As we have witnessed, about 30% of farmers in the country they have received income benefits from this type of scheme. Hence, there is no selection biases in this particular scheme. And this it creates a positive ecosystem in the whole of agricultural sector. Now, after we have witnessed and discussed what are the benefits of this PM Kisan scheme, let us now discuss what are the issues related to it, the concept of the scheme, as well as problems in its implementation. The first issue it relates to the insufficient amount that is given in this particular scheme, because rupees 6,000 annually when you divide by 365 it leads to almost 17 rupees per day of support to farmers, which you have witnessed is very low amount, and it only results into about 5 to 8% of farmers existing annual income. Hence you can see that this amount is grossly insufficient. Further, the rupees 6,000 support which is given by the government of India, it is also low when you compare it with other state schemes. For example, Ritu Bandhu Yojana of Telangana, it gives about rupees 10,000 benefit to every farmer per year. Hence you can see that the amount, that is rupees 6,000, it is grossly less than the amount which is given by other state governments. Further, this scheme it also faced challenges in terms of selection of beneficiaries. As we have already discussed, all the farmers they are covered under this scheme. However, this scheme it excludes tenant farmers, as these tenant farmers they account for about 40% of total agricultural workers. And this substantial 40% of agricultural workers they are outside the ambit of this PM Kisan scheme. Further, tribals in the country who conduct agricultural activities on a community based owned land, they are also excluded from this particular scheme, because lands that tribals utilize they are not registered in their individual name. Hence, these tribals they are excluded from this particular scheme, and it relates to challenges in selection of beneficiaries. Further, the coverage of this scheme it is also very debatable, because the the benefits of this scheme it is only extended to a family, whereas on the other hand the benefits in other government scheme it is extended to every household. Hence you can see that there's an administrative challenge with respect to identifying families, as currently administration it only accounts for different households. Further, there are also difficulties in analyzing whether one farmer he owns multiple lands, or when multiple lands are, or when one land it is owned by multiple farmers. Hence you can see that this creates problem in relation to coverage of this scheme. Further, as we have noticed that the land records in our country it is currently in haphazard manner, because most of the states in India they have not digitized these particular land records. Hence, these haphazard land records it creates challenges in identifying the beneficiary as well as granting the benefits to these beneficiaries. Further, as the amount of support, that is rupees 6,000, it is transferred to farmers through a direct benefit transfer. And this technology it creates further issues, because in many cases we have witnessed that the bank accounts of farmers, they are dormant, which creates difficulties in transferring these funds to the bank accounts. Further, banks, what they do is that they settle the amount, that is rupees 6,000, against any past dues that a farmer has. Hence, eventually, farmer is left with little to no money with himself. Also, the rural infrastructure in the bank, rural banking infrastructure in the country, it currently lags behind the urban areas. Hence, it creates accessibility problems to farmers when they have to take out money related to the support scheme. Hence, because of insufficient amount that is given to farmers, which translates almost rupees 17 every day, selection of beneficiaries, as well as their coverage related challenge, which are related to identifying land records and land ownership, it adds to the problem of PM-Kisan and its implementation. Now, what should be the way forward in order to implement this scheme in a better manner? Let us discuss this in the next slide. Now, the first requirement to farmers is that the cash transfer should be done in an adequate manner. Hence, for this, what we need is to index the cash transfers based on inflation in the country. And as inflation in the country it rises every year, so should be the cash transfers that are given to farmers. Further, with this index related cash transfers, it will help reduce the volatility and price fluctuations in the market itself. Further, what should we do is that these cash transfers should be done in a timely manner. And these cash transfers, they should coincide this sowing or reaping season for farmers. Because otherwise, when farmers they receive this benefit in the season where they have no work, then they will utilize this cash transfer for their consumption related requirements. Hence, to make this cash transfers more innovative as well as initiate the farmers to utilize this cash transfer for infrastructure related development, the cash transfer should be done in an adequate time frame. Further, what farmers they should be provided with agricultural advisory services, because these services they will help farmers identify the areas that they should spend these benefits on. And when they spend these benefits on an productive manner, especially on infrastructure related work, it will lead to increased agricultural productivity in the country. Further, the IT backbone of every state it should be strengthened, because with an adequate IT support, the states it will help digitize the land record in the country. And because of this digitized land record, farmers it the states it will be in a better position to know more about farmers and their day-to-day requirements. Further, the implementation of this scheme it should be done in a more decentralized manner. And in this regard, more freedom it should be extended to states, as currently states are only responsible for identification of beneficiaries. However, when states will become responsible for implementation of this scheme, it will result into better outcomes. Further, what we should do and what government should do is that it should provide a comprehensive social security to farmers in the country. For example, there's a Kalia scheme in the state of Odisha. And this scheme, it extends not just income support but also life insurance as well as health coverage to farmers. And this leads to better farm incomes because farmers they have to spend less on their life and health related issues. Hence, a similar scheme can be introduced by government of India also. Hence, when they will cover life as well as health benefits to farmers, it will result into a more comprehensive social security to farmers. Hence, by making the cash transfers more timely and adequate, extending agricultural advisory services to farmers, strengthening the IT backbone of the state, as it will help them digitize this land records, as well as granting more freedom to states, because this scheme it needs decentralized approach, as well as providing a comprehensive social security to farmers, will help the government implement this PM Kisan scheme in a more better manner. Hence, this was all for PM Kisan scheme in our today's discussion. Now, with this, let us move to the next article of the day, which appeared in the explained section of the Indian Express. Now, this article it highlights that the Cyprus, which is a tax haven country, it has been utilized by individuals in India to launder money. Now, you'll ask, what is money laundering and why are we covering it in the first place? Now, money laundering, it is expressly mentioned in the GS paper 3 syllabus, and hence government of India it should initiate efforts in order to prevent this money laundering. Further, this issue of money laundering it appeared in mains of the year 2018 as well as 2013. Hence, this topic is important from GS paper 3 perspective. Now, you'll ask, what is money laundering? Now, let me understand it to you with the help of an example. Suppose you're a criminal and you're getting an illicit form of cash. Hence, naturally, you cannot spend this cash in a market. Otherwise, law enforcement agencies they will know more about it. Hence, what you do is that you introduce this cash into the system, which is known as placement. Now, to hide this illicit cash, what you do is that you layer this cash with other different and complex financial transaction. For example, you send this cash to a tax haven country, and there you establish what is known as a shell company. Now, this shell company they do not have an active business transaction, and they get this cash from you and they provide you with an imaginary goods and services, and they generate tax invoices as well as balance sheet based on your illicit income. And when you transfer this income from one shell company to other, it will create a complex web of financial transaction. As this complex web of financial transaction, it will hide your original source of illicit funds. And when you hide it with a more complex track, then you introduce this money into the country's financial system, which is known as integration. Hence, you can see that this entire process, which aims to wash and launder your illicit funds, it is known as money laundering. Because this process it enables a criminal to utilize this illicit funds in a more legal manner, and hence the government it should control this money laundering menace. Now, why should we control this money laundering menace in the first place? It is because it has several implications on various aspects of Indian society. Let us discuss this implication one by one. Now, the first implication is on the society of our home country, because this money laundering it increases cash with the criminal elements in the Indian society, and naturally, when this cash is flown to the domestic economy, it increases the money supply in a domestic economy, and naturally, this increased money supply will lead to increased inflation, which is well beyond what the RBI or the monetary authority in the country expects. Now, when this increased money is flown into an economy, this these criminals they utilize this money to buy more and more fixed assets. And when these assets are increased in an economy, it leads to what is known as an asset bubble, which means these assets they will be available only at an inflated prices. And this inflated assets it creates very large amount of societal distortions. Further, this criminal elements when they gain money, it also leads to increased income inequality, which is very harmful for any Indian society. Further, it also encourages increase in crime as well as corruption, which again disrupts the social fabric of an Indian society. Hence, this money laundering, it has several implications on society at the first place. Now, let us consider what are the economic implications. Now, first of all, when this money is channeled into an Indian society, it will lead to increased money supply. And this supply, it leads to increased inflation in the country. Now, this inflation is above and beyond what the RBI expects. Hence, when it aims to counter this inflation through policy measures, it will be unable to do so because it will be unable to estimate the number of illicit cash in the Indian economy. Further, when RBI or government it is unable to estimate and control the inflation in the country, it will lead to decreased confidence in the Indian markets. And this decreased confidence in Indian market, it will lead to less out inflows of foreign funds. Hence, in the long run, it will lead to decreased competitiveness of our Indian currency. Hence, you can see that flow of illicit fund in an economy, it has several economic implications as it leads to decreased confidence in markets, increased inflation, as well as the government and RBI, it is unable to estimate the amount of illicit cash in an economy. Further, when this money that is come out of laundering, it is flown into the political sphere, it increases the criminalization, which is very much prevalent in the Indian politics. And with increased criminalization, it will lead to increased flow of electoral funds. And this creates distortion in the Indian democracy in general. Further, when this criminal elements, they will try to protect their illicit funds. Hence, it will also encourage their participation in politics. And this will further reduce the political legitimacy of an entire country. Further, this money laundering, it also has security implications as well. First of all, illegal activities such as terrorism or organized crime, they are supported through this illegal funds as well. Hence, you can see that flow of money laundering, it will encourage and further terrorism as well as organized crime in the country. Further, when Hawala network it is used to transfer illegal funds, the monetary authority in the country they will be unable to ensure financial checks in the country. Hence, this will create distortions not just in domestic market but will also have implication on the value of Indian rupee. Hence, we have witnessed that money laundering it has significant aspects on social, economic, political as well as security aspects of an entire country. Hence, naturally, like every other government, even government of India, it wants to reduce the impact of money laundering. Now, what are the measures that the government of India has currently taken? Let us discuss this in this particular slide. For example, government of India, it witnesses international cooperation when it comes to prevention of money laundering. First of all, India is a signatory of a Vienna Convention. As this Vienna Convention, it is the first major convention which deals with prevention of money laundering. And this Vienna Convention, it laid the groundwork for international cooperation on the issue of money laundering. Further, this Vienna Convention, it also criminalizes the aspect of money laundering. Hence, every signatory of Vienna Convention, it should criminalize or make the offense of money laundering criminal in nature. Further, there is also another body which is known as Financial Action Task Force, which has already been in news for the past few years. Now, what this body does is that it sets standards for money laundering as well as it helps government enacts policies as well as laws to prevent money laundering in the country and how it ensures compliance. Every nation which is a signatory of FATF, it should have a policy as well as laws related to money laundering. And in case a member state is failed to achieve some steps, this FATF, it places this member nations into what is known as grey as well as black lists. And this acts as a moral suasion for a nation as they do not want it to be added in these two lists. And hence, when governments they are added to this list, they work with FATF to get out of this list. And it means that they have to stringently follow policies and laws which are advocated by this particular body. As this body, it aims to name and shame the violators of money laundering. For example, recently, Pakistan, it was added to grey list, whereas Iran, on the other hand, it is listed in the blacklist category. And this FATF, it has proven to be more effective when it comes to money laundering because it works with governments at various levels and promotes international cooperation on the issue of money laundering. Further, it has a more focused approach and it deals with new as well as emerging threats. Further, India, it is also a signatory to United Nations Global Program on Money Laundering. And India it has adopted three conventions on money laundering, which was International Convention on Suppression of Financing of Terrorism as well as United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime. Further, in the year of 2003, India it also acceded to United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Further, as India, it is a signatory to Vienna Convention, hence it meant that India it enacted the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of the year 2002. As this act, it defines what is a money laundering activity. And persons who are engaged in money laundering activities or even are associated with properties that are obtained out of money laundering activities, then they will be prosecuted under this particular act. Further, this act it also provides for adjudicating authority. As this adjudicating authority, it consists of three members. And these three members, they will decide on what kind of properties it will be attached or confiscated in cases of money laundering. Further, if a member it is aggrieved with the adjudicating authority's decision, he will appeal its decision to the appellate tribunal, which is constituted by the central government. Hence, this central government it constitutes appellate tribunal which will hear cases against this adjudicating authority. Further, central government in consultation with chief justices of high courts of various states, it also establishes special court for hearing of cases related to money laundering. Further, this act it also imposes certain obligation on financial intermediaries. As these intermediaries, they should collect information of their clients and they should provide these information to different bodies such as Financial Intelligence Unit. Further, India has also established two institutions to specifically deal with the issue of money laundering. The first is the Enforcement Directorate, which conducts investigation as well as prosecutes responsible persons for the issue of money laundering. Further, India also established Financial Intelligence Unit, which is under the Ministry of Finance. As this body, it collects and processes information based on different financial transaction and it determines whether that financial transaction it involves money laundering funds or not. Now, after we've discussed what are the frameworks for prevention of money laundering in India, let us now discuss what are the challenges that are faced in implementation or prevention of money laundering. The first challenge it relates to increased or growing technologies currently. And most important is the rise of cryptocurrencies. As these cryptocurrencies, especially the private ones, such as Bitcoin as well as Ethereum, they are utilized for transfer of illicit funds in and out of the country. Now, the country's monetary authority, that is RBI, it is not controlling the supply of these private cryptocurrencies. Hence, the supply of private cryptocurrencies in the country has emerged as the biggest threat in countering the money laundering. Further, people in India in general, they have lack or low awareness when it comes to use of hawala transactions. Because many people in the country, especially the poor ones, they rely on these hawala networks to transfer their income. And these hawala transactions, they are more popular with these poor people is because it provides transfer of money at much lower cost. Further, the requirements of identification, it is also not required when you transfer funds using this hawala network. Hence, it has emerged as a popular source of money transfer for poor people. However, this hawala network, it is also responsible for transfer of illicit funds. Hence, when people lack awareness of this hawala network, it has been used to transmit or transfer these illicit funds in the country. Further, India has multiple law enforcement agencies. For example, Prevention of Corruption Act, it is dealt by Vigilance and Central Vigilance Commission. Whereas cases of corruption, it is dealt by CBI as well as Lokpal in the country. Whereas as you have witnessed, Enforcement Directorate, it is responsible for prosecution under Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Hence, you can see that there are multiple law enforcement agencies in the country which are responsible for tackling corruption. And this existence of multiple law enforcement agencies, it creates the problem of coordination among them. Hence, the law enforcement agencies in the country, they witness low coordination. And this creates challenges in identifying money laundering as well as prosecuting cases relating to offenses of money laundering. Further, India also has direct tax avoidance agreements with various tax haven countries, for example, Cyprus as well as Cayman Islands. Now, this double taxation avoidance agreement, it allows people of India to establish accounts in tax haven countries. As the article today, it highlights that Cyprus, it has been misused by these individuals to create and transfer money laundered funds. Hence, you can see that these tax haven countries and their privacy laws, it prohibits India to investigate the cases of money laundering. Further, enforcement directorate in the country, it currently witnesses high conviction rate in relation to money laundering. For example, about 96% conviction rate is achieved by ED when it comes to cases related to Prevention of Money Laundering Act. But on the other hand, when it comes to convicting political appointees such as MLAs as well as MPs, this conviction rate of ED, it falls down to about 2.96%. Hence, you can see that ED, it has low conviction rate when prosecution of political appointees are concerned. Hence, this creates problem in prevention of money laundering because many politicians, they are involved and are about to be eligible to be involved in these money laundering activities. Hence, due to emergence of technologies such as private cryptocurrencies, lack of awareness about misuse of hawala networks, existence of multiple law enforcement agencies, tax haven countries such as Cyprus and their privacy laws, they inhibit the exact implementation of money laundering prevention measures. Now, what should be done in order to make this money laundering more punishable and a preventive affair? In this regard, let us look at FATF recommendation. Now, Financial Action Task Force, it recommended that the institution in a country, it should identify risks as well as products that can be misused to transfer illicit funds in and out of country. Hence, will be able to identify risk in a better manner. They will be eliminate or take a measure to eliminate this risky products. Further, international cooperation, it is very much essential for money laundering and its prevention. Hence, nations, they should comply with directions and resolutions of United Nations Security Council in this regard. As Security Council, it gives various recommendations, especially with relates to implementation of FATF measures. Hence, when nations will they coordinate and comply with this UNSC resolution, it will help them tackle money laundering in a more effective manner. Further, what FATF it recommended that nations it should review the workings and laws related to non-profits such as non-government organizations, because these organizations in recent times they have become conduit for money laundering activities. And in this regard, Foreign Currency Regulation Act in India, it can play a critical role in curbing these NGOs as they misuse many of the money laundering funds. Further, financial institutions in the country they should undertake relevant client due diligence, as by undertaking it will help them regulate what type of client they should invite, as well as provide the transactions of these clients to financial intelligence units. Further, India has also witnessed rise in amount of dormant account in the country, because due to PM Jan Dhan Yojana, many accounts have been opened in the country. However, due to their lack of use, they remain dormant. And these dormant accounts, they can play a key role when it deals with money laundering, because small amounts of money they can transferred into these dormant accounts and they can be taken out afterwards. Hence, what government should do is that they should review these dormant accounts and should close many of the dormant accounts. Further, India should also review its direct tax agreements which is there with various countries. For example, only few years back, India reviewed its direct tax agreement with Maldives, as India it realized that Maldives was emerging as a main hub of channeling of money laundered funds. Hence, when they can undertake tax haven jurisdictions such as Cyprus as well as Cayman Island, these tax haven jurisdiction and their DTA it should be reviewed by India. Hence, by implementing the FATF recommendation, financial intermediaries they should undertake due diligence of their clients. Government it should close their dormant accounts as well as review the double taxation avoidance agreement with various tax haven jurisdiction. This will help the entire nation deal with the menace of money laundering in a more effective manner. And with this, we conclude our today's discussion on money laundering, and let us now move to the last article of the day, which appeared on page 9 of today's The Hindu newspaper. Now, in the recent past, as you have witnessed, even with your mobile phones, these gadgets they are powered by what are known as electric batteries. And these electric batteries they have become a foundation of our modern societies. Now, from exams point of view, this topic it is important from GS paper 3 perspective, because developments and their applications in everyday life it is important from UPSC perspective. Further, developments such as light emitting diode, which are important from exams point of view, it was asked in the mains of the year 2016. Hence, as lithium ion and hydrogen fuel cell batteries, they have been in news in the recent past, and it makes this topic important from exams point of view. Now, what are electric batteries? These electric batteries they convert chemical energy to electrical energy, and this electrical energy it powers our day to day gadgets. Hence, we should know more about what is lithium ion as well as hydrogen fuel cell battery. Now, what is a lithium ion battery? Now, this lithium ion battery, it works in two different manner. First of all, it works as a voltaic cell, which means that this body, as you can see from this particular graph, it consists of both anode and cathode. And this anode and cathode, they are separated by what is called a conductive electrolyte. And when these anode and cathode are connected through a wire, the lithium ion, which is there in both anode and cathode, it breaks down into protons, which are positive charge, and electrons, which are negative charged. Now, lithium ion, it exists in form of protons. And when these two anode and cathode are connected, these lithium ion, they move from anode and cathode. Now, this cathode, it is surplused with negative charged electrons. And hence, this electron, they move through this particular circuit, generating an electric current. Now, this electric current in particular, it is utilized by various gadgets, which powers which is powered by this particular electric current. But whereas an electric charge from outside, it is provided to lithium ion battery, this entire process is exactly reversed. Hence, this lithium ion as well as electron, they are moved to this anode. And in this way, the lithium ion, it works as an electrolyte cell battery. Hence, you can see it can discharge as an voltaic cell as well as it can charge as an electrolyte cell. And this makes the lithium ion battery rechargeable in nature. And this rechargeable nature of lithium ion, it is a very essential when it comes to powering of our electronic devices. As this lithium ion battery in particular, it has several advantages. For example, this lithium ion, it has a high energy density. Now, what is this energy density in the first place? For example, this energy density, it means that a body, it is providing certain amount of power per unit of its weight. Hence, lithium ion, it has high energy density, which means that this lithium ion, it provides more power when you consider per unit weight. Hence, even a light amount of lithium ion battery, it can provide more power as compared to other batteries. Further, there is also another concept which is known as power density, which means the amount of current a battery provides per unit time. Hence, this lithium ion battery, it also has high power density, which means for every single time, this battery, it provides more current when you compare it with other batteries. And these two qualities in particular, it makes lithium ion very appropriate for providing batteries to electronic gadgets. For example, this mobile phone, it has a high computing power, and the companies in general, they are able to condense the entire battery into this small size. And this small size and highly packed lithium ion battery, it ensures that a mobile device, it can last through an entire day. Hence, it has only been possible due to high energy density as well as high power density of a lithium ion battery. Further, this lithium ion, it also provides batteries having high voltage. And this high voltage, it is about 3 times more than nickel cadmium batteries. Hence, this high voltage, it enables a lithium ion battery to power more devices. Further, these lithium ion battery, they have another quality. For example, they have low self discharge. And even if you lie or even if you keep a lithium ion battery dormant for a period of, let's say, 1 month, you will still be able to get some current out of these batteries. Hence, this low self discharge potential, it is ideal for a gadget which is left dormant for a significant amount of time. But naturally, as this battery has certain advantages, it also has several disadvantages as well. For example, as this lithium ion battery, it has high energy and power density, thereby this kind of a battery is also less stable. Further, when high amount of energy it is packed in a small area, it also makes lithium ion battery highly reactive in nature. And because of less stability and high reactivity, what it does that this lithium ion battery, they are prone to catch fires. Hence, you have seen many electronic gadgets like mobile phones, they are prone to fire related incidents. Further, when it comes to availability of lithium, it is also sourced from handful of countries. For example, Bolivia, Argentina, as well as Chile, these three countries are a major source of lithium ion. Whereas on the other hand, India, it is dependent on imports. Hence, you can see that the availability of lithium ion in particular, especially for India, it remains a challenge. Now, after we've discussed what is a lithium ion battery, let us now move to hydrogen cell batteries. Now, these hydrogen cell batteries, they have several advantages. For example, this hydrogen cell battery, they can work in a continuous manner. Now, this hydrogen cell battery, it consists of an anode as well as cathode. And when hydrogen is supplied to the anode, it breaks down to this hydrogen ion into hydrogen ion as well as negatively charged electrode. And this negatively charged electrode, it flows through this circuit, results into electric current. And this electric current, it is used to provide power to various devices. Now, this hydrogen ion, when it flows through membrane to cathode, and when it meets with oxygen, it results into creation of water, which is the only byproduct of this entire process. Hence, you can see that this hydrogen fuel cell, it has very low or negative emissions, because the only emission that this kind of battery emits is water, which is not at all harmful for the nature. Further, as hydrogen is broken into different parts, this particular fuel cell, it establishes higher energy efficiency. For example, energy efficiency of hydrogen fuel cell, it can go up to 60%, which is almost the double of amount that a internal combustion engine generally makes. For example, internal combustion engine, they have efficiency of about 31 to 32 percentage, which is nearly half the amount of efficiency that is displayed by these hydrogen fuel cells. Further, these hydrogen fuel cell, they also have few moving parts, which makes their operational silent in nature, as they have few moving parts and which will also make them last for a long time. Further, as long as you provide these batteries with a supply of adequate hydrogen, you do not need to recharge this battery. Hence, the need for recharge, which takes a significant amount of time, in case of lithium ion battery, it is not the case with hydrogen fuel cells. But despite having several advantages, there are also many disadvantages of hydrogen fuel cell. For example, hydrogen, it is a low energy by volume product. Hence, requiring storage of hydrogen fuel, it should be done in a less temperature as well as high pressure. And maintaining these conditions in a moving vehicle is a challenging task. Further, these contraptions, they also require a significant amount of space. Hence, installing a hydrogen fuel cell in a light commercial vehicle, it is also a challenging affair. Further, the materials which are used for this hydrogen fuel cell as well as its membrane and catalyst, they are expensive in costs. And this further adds to the challenges that is displayed by this hydrogen fuel cell. Hence, in our today's discussion on electric batteries, we have dealt in detail about lithium ion batteries, which have high energy as well as power density, and they provide high voltages as well as have low self discharge. However, these lithium ion batteries, they also are less stable and highly reactive in nature. Further, sourcing the lithium for this kind of battery, it is also a challenging affair because currently India is dependent entirely on imports for sourcing of its lithium requirements. While on the other hand, these hydrogen fuel cells are concerned, they have higher efficiency when you compare them with internal combustion engines. As well as whereas emissions is concerned, these hydrogen fuel cell they only emit water. Further, as there are few moving parts, these hydrogen fuel cells they are silent in operation. However, there are two challenges which are associated with these hydrogen fuel cells. First of all, storing hydrogen fuel, it is a challenging affair, as well as the cost which are utilized to make this hydrogen fuel cell, it is also a prohibitive affair in case of manufacturing of hydrogen fuel cells are concerned. Hence, with this discussion, we conclude our today's DNS and gladly, students, you can now move to the India semi-final match today. With this, let me bid you good night.